The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, thanks to those who've already joined. We'll be getting started in a minute or two. We'll just give people a little longer to get logged in. But in the meantime, I'd like to welcome my co-hosts, Pankaj and Jason. Welcome to you both. It's great to have you here with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for promoting this event as well. We've got about 75 registrations, so clearly there's quite a buzz about what it is we're going to be showing, which is great. Okay, just a couple more minutes. See, the numbers are going up, which is great. Okay, I think we can start. So, hello and welcome to this webinar showcasing the integration between Sense and TargetRecruit. We're really excited to be able to bring this to you today, and we hope that you'll see how this could really add value to your business. I'll introduce you to the team on the webinar today. I'm Alistair Murray, Director of Customer Success at TargetRecruit, and we're joined by Pankaj Jindal, co-founder of Sense, and Jason Jakes, the Director of Solutions Consulting at Sense. We all recognise that in today's relentlessly competitive marketplace, staffing agencies want their consultants to be doing less admin and focusing on what they excel at, managing relationships with candidates and clients. But it's also important to ensure candidates receive a consistent experience and feel nurtured in their dealings with your organisation. Obviously, there are lots of great tools in Salesforce and TargetRecruit to facilitate this, but most require active effort by an end user. We're going to look today at how engagement automation can allow you to increase both the volume and the quality of your interactions with candidates. Furthermore, candidates now expect personal messaging on all their mobile devices and to be able to communicate instantly wherever they are. So instant messaging is replacing email as their preferred medium. If you can't instantly reach out or respond to your candidates, then you'll struggle to be the first one to contact them and potentially miss out on a placement. Sense is one of the world leaders in this space and have solutions that focus specifically on staffing. So the integration with TargetRecruit will give you a lot of what you need out of the box, but with the capability to be easily configured to your exact needs. This session will last about 45 minutes and we'll have time at the end for Q&A. So if you do have any questions as we go, please post them in the chat window. So let's get started. Pankaj, Jason, over to you.
Alistair, thank you so much. Thank you for having us today. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you everyone for joining us and giving us some part of your day. I'm going to start by giving a quick introduction about Sense for those of you who are unfamiliar with the company. Sense started a little over 5 years ago with the singular mission of being the first engagement platform designed specifically for the staffing industry. We've stayed very true to that mission so far. Currently, we work with over 400 staffing companies, including some of the largest staffing companies in the world. We already have 6 of the top 10 global firms as our customers and 60 of the top 175. We picked the 175 number from SIA. These are all customers with over $100 million in revenue. Along this journey, we've raised about $40 million in venture capital from Titan investors like Axel Partners, Google Ventures, and Avatar Ventures. The entire Sense platform is built around 3 key tenets. First is growth. How can we help you get more candidates in the top of your funnel? How can we help you make more placements and essentially impact your top line? Second is around retention. How do we get you more out of every candidate that you have today? In other words, reduce your drop-off, reduce your attrition, increase your redeployment, increase your NPS, increase your loyalty scores, so people can stay with you longer and essentially make you more profit, thus impacting your bottom line. And lastly, automation. How do we take the busy work out of your recruiter's day? We'll talk a lot more about how recruiters spend 65 to 75% of their time today prospecting, updating the applicant tracking system, doing repetitive tasks, all of which can be automated, and only 1/3 of their time actually talking to customers and candidates. So as we talk about this, I also wanted to specifically talk about, the TargetRecruit and Sense integration. We are super excited to, talk about that today. This is actually an integration that we completed in fall of last year. So there's been a lot of work that's been going on behind the scenes, and we already have a number of customers, as you can see here, who are already live on the Sense and TargetRecruit integration and actually seeing great results already. In the conversation today, we will talk about what a lot of this integration can accomplish for you, automation, an artificial intelligence based chatbot, Sense messaging, which is a two-way text messaging platform, so on and so forth. So we'll talk a lot about several use cases that you can automate, but please know that today we are simply going to give you a teaser. There are hundreds of other things that you can do with Sense. And if this is something that's right for your business, we'll be happy to tell you more. So let me first start by saying, what are some of the challenges that we were looking to solve? Why did we decide to build this platform in the first place? So I'm going to break that down into two pieces. One, here are some of the inefficiencies that exist in the staffing business today. First of all, there is a high drop-off. The staffing funnel is probably one of the most inefficient funnels in any business that you see. You could start with 100 candidates or 10,000 candidates, and you're unlikely to do any more than 1 or 2% of people, convert 1 or 2% of those people into placements. So for every 100 people that you start with, only 1 or 2 people get hired. Everybody else gets dropped off from your pipeline, even though those people can be good fit for assignments elsewhere. Secondly, most people have their applicant tracking system database that is stale and unused. If you think about your own situation, you might have 100,000 candidates, you might have 1 million candidates sitting in your database, but it is likely that nobody has talked to them in 6 months, maybe even a couple of years. However, it's interesting that a number of new placements that you make actually come from the people who are in the database. So how do you keep that database up to date is another conversation we'll have. Thirdly is retention. I mean, we have one of the most, sort of poor retention rates in the industry. Redeployment rates within the staffing industry range between 3 to 5%, which means about 95% of your people, once they finish their first assignment with you, they're likely to move away from your company, and you're only going to be able to make revenue and profit from this individual for one assignment. And lastly, what I talked about before, recruiters are actually doing too much busy work and not having enough time to talk to candidates and clients. So these are, the key processes in our industry today that are pretty inefficient. And then, of course, if you think about the life of a recruiter today, this is what that looks like. A typical recruiter is today probably working with dozens of different technologies. Some of them for your processes, like the ones you see here, they might have a different technology for referrals, for surveys, for two-way text messaging, for some candidate marketing, for net promoter score, for contractor care, so on and so forth. So that's one part of it. And secondly, they might have dozens of applicant tracking, dozens of VMSs that they need to understand, as well as your ATS. With Sense, you would be able to combine all these point solutions into a single platform. Everything that you see here written under the current state or multiple systems can be accomplished with Sense seamlessly. And every transaction, every communication, every interaction with Sense is then recorded back into your applicant tracking systems, which gives you a single system of record. I'm sure you'd all agree that if you look at some of these systems today, that several of these systems probably do not talk to your applicant tracking system. That's no longer the case. Everything that we'll show you will actually write back into TargetRecruit. So how do we do that? Well, from our standpoint, automation is the answer for that. Now, when we think about automation, there are two kinds of automation. One is just, your basic data hygiene. Just making sure your database is up to date, you have the right information. If somebody leaves your company, you don't have records that become orphan. And then second is trigger-based automation. This is probably the bulk of what we will talk about. So this idea of, hey, what should automatically happen when there is an event? And an event could be somebody starting, somebody ending, somebody getting an interview, getting a submission, sending you a referral, sending you a sales lead. Each of these things can trigger an automation journey automatically, so nothing is ever dropped through the cracks. So if you have a contractor starting on a certain day, here are 3 things that need to happen, 3 touch points that need to happen before that person starts, and 10 things that need to happen after that person starts over the course of the next 30 days, whatever the case might be. So as we talk about that, I'm going to talk about some use cases that you will very easily be able to accomplish using Sense. One is this whole idea of keeping your database clean. And why would you want to do that? Well, on the right-hand side here, you see a statistic that we've gathered from some of the largest staffing companies in the US. About 50% of the placements that they are making today actually came from candidates who already existed in their database. Yet, guess what? They have never ever reduced their spend on job boards. They're still paying the same amount of money year after year to job boards like Indeed or LinkedIn or Monster or Career Builder, whatever the case might be, whereas you already had those candidates. So database automation is one of the things to focus on. The second thing is recruitment marketing. Just essentially give your recruiters superpowers. I'll give you 2 or 3 different examples here. Example number 1, you can continuously nurture your database. What does that mean? So you have 100,000 people in your database. Maybe you're sending them a monthly newsletter. Maybe you're sending them a State of the Union message. But whatever you're doing, you're essentially keeping in touch with these people. Maybe periodically you're asking them and saying, hey, are you available to work? Or when will you be available to work? So you know exactly the people who are coming into the job market. You can also nurture different categories of people differently. We use a category called silver medalists, people who were sent for an interview, had a great interview with a hiring manager, great feedback, but the hiring manager ended up hiring somebody else. Maybe they liked somebody else just a little bit better. If that happens, you know that this individual is still a great candidate and they will probably become a placement somewhere else really quickly. You want to nurture them differently. The second piece here is a conversational AI assistant. In other words, a chatbot. A chatbot is probably the biggest superpower that you can give your company right now. So the idea behind a chatbot is you can talk to hundreds or thousands of people at the same time and screen them. You can pre-screen candidates right away. Depending on what your business is or what your industry is, you might have different questions. Are you authorized to work in the US? Will you be willing to work for this particular pay rate? Which zip code do you live in? Do you have a driver's license? Are you able to stand on your feet for 8 hours a day? Whatever the job is, do you have certain number of years of experience in building iOS apps? You can do all this screening, which will automatically be done using natural language, so that the 5 or 10% of the people who actually get through this screening are the ones who are automatically scheduled with a recruiter. And when I say automatically scheduled, the chatbot includes a scheduler tool in it. So once you answer the questions, and if you're answering all these questions the way the staffing company, which is you, wanted, they can immediately be presented with a scheduler that says, great, seems like you should definitely talk to a recruiter, pick a time that works for you. And everybody else, 90% of the other folks, that are not passing this pre-screen, they can actually be sent to a generic job page, a generic web page, or you can send them a different kind of message. But basically, you can free up that 90% of the time for your recruiters. And then thirdly, the idea of actually building your brand. Several of our customers over the course of 3 to 6 months will dramatically change their NPS scores and their Glassdoor scores. And once you do that, it automatically attracts a lot more candidates. Candidates today are very fickle. They will only work with a company that takes care of people. So very happily, if you have a higher Glassdoor rating, people will start applying to you, which also means you have a bigger and a greater top of the funnel, and you can start reducing your spend on job boards. Then, of course, you want to do engagement after you have these candidates down funnel, you figured them out, you're actually now starting to submit them to jobs. When you do that, like I said before, all of this communication can be very much trigger based. So you can certainly focus it on, hey, you just got an interview. Here is a message. Here is the person you'll be talking to. Here is the time you need to show up at. You can send all of these messages via email or mobile. So you can make sure that everything that you're communicating with your candidates or customers with is based on their preference. And we'll talk more about text messaging in detail here in a second. And that's when I'll talk about how you can change automated messages into one-on-one communication. And then lastly, take care of people while they're on assignment. This is typically the biggest black hole in our industry. Once somebody gets a job, we forget about them. They're on assignment and that's it. But this is really the time to nurture them for multiple different reasons. One, this is when you can get referrals from them. This is what you can get sales leads from them. Two, if you take care of them, these are the people who probably will end up staying with you and do subsequent assignments, which will reduce your cost per hire dramatically. So if you think about it, Sense will give you a very easy way to track your redeployment. How many new placements are you making and how many people are you redeploying? How many people are working with you for the first time versus the second time, so on and so forth. So these are just very few examples of what you can do to automate your operations, but you can pretty much automate everything that's a process in your company today. Referrals, exit surveys, welcome messages, happy hours, newsletters, contractor care, so on and so forth. But let's specifically talk about two-way text messaging. So two-way text messaging essentially gives the messaging superpower to your recruiters. It's a Chrome extension that sits on top of your applicant tracking system. Needless to say, most people love and reply to text messages today compared to emails. The email open rate and the email response rates are dismal, but if you even check your own cell phones, you probably have hundreds, if not thousands of unread emails, but maybe very, very few unread text messages. People read them right away, people reply to them right away. So that's essentially, you want to meet your candidates where they live. Now, like I was saying, not only can you have a Chrome extension on top of your applicant tracking system, the Sense messaging platform integrates with the Sense automation platform. What does that mean? When you're about to send somebody a text message, you will, in the right-hand side on a pane, be able to see every single automation that has happened with this person. So before you send somebody a text message, you'll be able to see, hey, Sense sent this person a message 5 days ago, 3 days ago, 1 day ago, and because I am the recruiter, that message was sent on my behalf. We'll obviously show this to you live. Second, you're absolutely having these conversations from right within your ATS. It's all happening within the comfort of your applicant tracking system. Every message that you're sending or receiving is going to get written back into your applicant tracking system, which means any communication a recruiter is having with any candidate becomes part of your system of record. So if somebody leaves your company tomorrow, you don't lose all of that history, you don't lose all of those relationships. And then, of course, tons of analytics here. You can actually see how many conversations are you having, what's the average time in which you're responding to people, who in your team is using this well, who in your team is not using it well. So you have complete visibility into, what this engagement and adoption looks like. This is actually a small list of all the features that the product has. I certainly won't go through all of them. We included this on a slide because we will circulate this recording and this slide back to you later. And once we do, we just wanted to make sure you knew that these are all things that you can do with the product. Jason's going to go through some of them, but at the same time, this is a more comprehensive list of anything that you may be curious about. You can send messages in a delayed fashion. You can schedule your messages, you can use actual templates, you can use actual variables, and we'll demonstrate some of that live to you as well. So anyway, what I've gone through, and I realize I've gone through this lightning quick, are some ways where you can automate your operations and use text messaging and use a conversational AI assistant. But I'm going to turn this over to Jason to actually walk you through the product and give you a live look at it, and then I'll come back and wrap it up with a slide or two. Jason, over to you.
Thanks, Pankaj. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So you should be seeing TargetRecruit. And where I'm going to start to show the product is actually the two-way messaging. It's pretty quick and easy. And really, I want to kind of show that and then focus on the automation aspect. But what I'm going to do is, you see I have a little Sense icon down the lower right-hand corner. What I can do is I can just, and I also see that I have 2 notifications waiting for me, or 2 messages. So I can quickly just click that, pop it open, and see the unread messages over on the left. And whichever conversation I have highlighted, which in this case is Kiz Richardson, I can see that in the middle. And then, as Pankaj was talking about, part of the power of having an engagement platform versus point solutions is that I can see all the coordinated automation that's both upcoming and has recently happened, which might have gone out via email. So I'm aware of everything that's happening in the Sense platform, all while I'm conversing with kids. I'm going to shrink this down a little bit real quick. And maybe I'm going to navigate to another area. In this case, I'm just going to go to a list view, but really any place you have a list, in TargetRecruit, you can use Sense to go ahead and create a new message and grab the numbers from the screen. And what this will do is this will pull everyone on there. I can add them very quickly, and you can see even we have something in red there, that's a landline. So I can quickly remove that, go ahead, use a template, new job opportunity, drop that in. And maybe I'm working early or late and I want to schedule to go out at a different time, so I can quickly do that. Now I'm not going to send this because these are real people on the other end, but do know that once I do send that, that will get logged into TargetRecruit. So I can go in, look at, in this case, Kiz Richardson, and we can see all of those events are logged. Now, certainly we're talking about maybe going back and forth with a candidate via text message. We can log those as individual texts if you want, like you see here, or we can also go ahead and log them as a daily log. So you have an entire conversation in one note. Also, kind of bridging the gap over the automation. If we do any automation with Sense, we're going to log that here as well. And I can immediately see what the contents are in both cases, whether it's a sent event sent or sent event response, or even a chatbot transcript and all the back and forth there. So everything gets logged into the ATS, which is great. And just coming back into the Sense messaging just for a second, to talk about kind of the usability. And first thing is we try and make it as easy to consume as possible. Everything's color coded. So everything in here is I'm looking, anything that's blue, that's an individual text between me and the recipient. Anything that's green, well, that was an automation sent on my behalf. So it was sent from my number, and it can definitely seem the candidate that it came from me and it was authentic. But I see it here, so if they reply, I have the context and can pick up the conversation. And anything that's in purple, that was a mass text. So I can see exactly what the candidate got as an individual text, but I do know it went out to a bunch of other people. And when it comes to managing, I can certainly see all my previous broadcasts, and I can label those broadcasts so I know what it was about. And then I can also see who it was sent to, whether there are any bounces, the text messaging responses. And the last thing here with messaging, just to make sure everyone's aware, there is delegation, inbox delegation. So if managers need to be able to see what their recruiters are doing, or someone's out sick and they need to manage someone else's inbox, we can completely support that. So there's a few other, there's a lot of other features as Pankaj showed at the end there. I'm not going to go through everything today. Just want to give you the highlights. So I'm actually going to leave here and jump into Sense. Now, within Sense, this is where essentially the automation is created and maintained. So recruiters and salespeople, they won't need to be in the system. We're going to create these automations, and we can do that for you, do the heavy lifting. We'll create these automations, and they'll just work. And the reason why they just work is because we're constantly syncing with TargetRecruit. So we're going to listen for activity or listen for inactivity to go ahead and trigger these things out. And I'll show you what that means in just a second. So as I bring up journeys, this is where those are configured, where the automations are configured. And you can think of those as campaigns or workflows, whatever nomenclature fits you. But as we go down through this list, or this example list that we have in this demonstration account, the one thing I would always point out is we can help pretty much throughout the entire life cycle of staffing and recruiting, whether that's at the very top with cold marketing to your contacts and hiring managers, whether that's lead nurturing, whether that's top of the funnel with staff with sourcing, whether that has to do with compliance or candidate evaluation, or even on down to ramping someone up, pre-deployment, through on assignment, even if you're doing perm, staying in touch with them through the guarantee period, standard notifications, ramping someone off an assignment and redeploying them, and then even when everything's all said and done, maybe managing people's alumni or trying to reinvigorate the sales contacts that have gone cold. So there's a lot there to unpack. and we're happy to show you in a more in-depth demonstration what all of those use cases look like. For today, I'm just going to jump into this on assignment really briefly and show you kind of the moving parts of what this could look like. So in this case, this is for someone getting ready to go on assignment. We have a few communications going out prior to make sure we're in touch with them, giving that white glove consistent treatment. And the communications are going out both to the candidate, but also the client, and even internally to possibly the recruiter or the job owner. And also, as Pankaj said, we're sending these out. You can see by the little icons, both via email and via text. And we can do a lot of things with the content of these communications. So certainly in this case, it's a simple text that's going out, just very authentic, just checking in, seeing how everything's going. So this, if anything's going on that we should know about. And when we send these out, we're sending these out from, whoever you want. In this case, recruiter owner, but could be the candidate owner, could be the job owner, could be the owner of the placement, whatever the case is. I'm going to put candidate owner back in here and then show you a brief example of maybe a simple email. So first day instructions, seems straightforward enough, but the key here is we're able to merge in data from all the different entities within TargetRecruit, and can include really anything you have there, including your user-defined fields. If you're doing something custom, you can make sure to include all of those. Now, not to make you think that everything is just simple like that, but we do also support marketing grade type emails as well. So we have a very nice drag and drop editor that will allow you to go ahead and create some nice layouts, have those social media links, embedded video, even embed surveys, or even menus to redirect people back to your website within those emails. So highly functional, highly polished. Now I'm going to jump back into that same one we were in before, that on assignment. And the last piece I'll talk about content-wise is, in this case, surveys. So when we're doing surveys through Sense, we can, of course, have rating questions, open text drop-downs, but really net promoter score as well. And typical net promoter score question, you're either a promoter, neutral, or detractor. One of the nice things about Sense, with the surveys, we can branch them or be dynamic in our response. So if they're neutral or detractor, we just collect feedback. But if they're promoter, well, then we can give them a different experience, which is, hey, we're very excited about your experience with us, and would you mind going and posting something on one of our social media outlets? And of course, your social media links will be here. But this has been key because we can send this out when we think people are happiest and they're self-electing. So we only expose those links and prompt people for people that are promoters. So that's a little bit about the journeys or the onboarding journey. The last one I'll talk about real quick is passive to active. So Pankaj talked about a very passive portion. Everyone has a passive portion of the database. It's rare that you're reaching out to probably more than 20% of your entire database within the last 3 to 6 months. So you can use this mechanism to essentially create a drip campaign to stay in touch with everyone, maybe tailor that to their specific role, industry, and keep the content fresh. But one of the other things you can do is you can also solicit through surveys or through chatbot, you can solicit feedback where they can give you information to update their profile. And I can jump into this email update survey, because if you have a lot of dormant people in your database, chances are you don't have mobile devices for all of them. So the key here is we're going to make life as easy as possible for those candidates to interact with you. And what you'll see here is we put a survey question right within the email, so they can just on their mobile device touch yes or no to let you know if they want to hear more about opportunities. And then from within that survey, we can go ahead and branch again and treat them as passive if they say no, and we can treat them as reactivated if they say yes. So in this case, we say, hey, we're excited to help you find your next role. And then we can start asking them other questions, like what's your job title, what's your desired salary? And currently with TargetRecruit, that's going to be fed back to the recruiter, dynamic response. So if someone says yes, we'll notify the recruiter. If someone says no, we're not going to notify the recruiter. That's just noise. But in this case, with the job title, what we're working towards is actually being able to update that individual field. So that's probably coming a little bit later this year, but will really enhance the functionality that Sense can provide when collecting feedback through surveys or chatbots. Now, the last area I wanted to touch on is the chatbot itself. So I'm going to jump down into this conversations area. And within here, I'm going to pull up this, we have a lot of different examples here between light industrial, financial, engineering, profession, and this is a professional for a data engineering manager, a lot of examples. But I just want to bring this up to show you the ease of creation. We're going to give you sample chatbots if you move forward with this module within Sense, so you don't have to recreate everything from scratch, but you do have the power to create everything exactly the way you want to. And what we're looking at here is kind of a workflow diagram. So you can kind of see how this is built, where we just have a quick greeting, estimated time, which is automatically created, and we start asking questions because this is a pre-screen. And actually, let me back up just 1 second. So to position the chatbot for you, most of the time when people think about a chatbot, they think about this, which is the, in the corner pop-up, hey, how can I help you? And we're actually releasing that portion of our chatbot in Q2, which we're just about in right now. But where we started when we decided to go out and utilize chatbot technology is outbound chatbot, because rather than just be able to interact with the people that hit your website, we wanted to make sure that we could reach out to everyone in your database. And that's where the data enrichment chatbot comes into play, or the pre-screening chatbot. So someone applies on the website, comes into TargetRecruit, we can automatically send out a pre-screen, or you manually associate someone to a job within TargetRecruit that was already in your database, and you set that to a certain status, and we can fire off a pre-screen questionnaire. And really, the power is it's really dynamic, like you'll see in a second, but also we can send this out via web-based interface as well as SMS conversation. And if I go back into this professional pre-screen, as I come down here, you'll see there's, and I'm just going to slowly scroll through this example, but there's a lot of questions, there's branching going on, potentially data checks, which pivot, which direction or which branch we go down. And then eventually we get through the questions and we allow them to see the data they've entered. So if they need to edit it, they certainly can. And then also we're next going to essentially judge them. And we might ask 8 questions, but 4 of those questions were important and then knockout questions. So we're going to put those in here. And then if they pass, we continue on. If they don't, we jump them to pre-screen failed, which is letting them down softly, redirecting them back to our website. But we can do things like collect more information. When would you be available to start? We have Calendly-like functionality that will allow people to go ahead and schedule time on the recruiter's calendar. So that is great because every recruiter can load their calendar availability into Sense. And then we're going back to what I was saying before, we're working towards being able to update the individual fields, but certainly we'll be able to send notifications as to whether people pass or fail the pre-screen and making sure we can move people along. Now, once I'm done building this, I just click build. We have an automated build process. The chatbot should be ready in 10 to 15 minutes. And then you can immediately put that back into the journeys to be triggered out based on whatever automation you've already put in place. Now, from just a very quick example, I want to go ahead and I'm just going to bring over my phone so you can get a taste of what that might look like. I'm going to go into my email. And in this case, this is an example where it's a pre-screen going out via email. And so what's going to happen here is it's going to prompt me and say, hey, this conversation should only take 3 minutes. Let's get started. In order to maintain a safe work environment, will you wear a mask? And the beauty of having this happen via the web-based interface is we make it really easy with buttons. And I'm not going to go through this full pre-screen because that's going to take a little time, but I just want to show you what the interface would look like. And then the secondary aspect is texting. So I can go ahead and actually I've done this more than once. So this conversation starts here, but this is something that's reached out via text asking if I want to update my profile. So I'm just going to go ahead and put an A, and natural language understanding is part of this chatbot. So, yep, whatever the case is, and it's going to understand. And I'm going to put in a zip code here. And one of the things right here, this is a test one, but it says you can continue the conversation at none. And that is actually, if I did that scheduled for real, that would have a link to the web-based chatbot. So if people get it via text, but want to continue via web, we support that. I'm going to go ahead and put in my zip code. And really the key here is, oh, you see it validated it. It told me exactly where that was. So we have a lot of validation that goes along with the chatbot as well, making sure the data that's being entered is correct. And I'm not really going to go much further than that. I just want to show you the interface and so you could see what that looks like. The last piece, just very quickly I'm going to touch on, is the analytics, because the analytics are deep with Sense. You look at this overall metrics where we break out basically delivery rates, open rates, conversion summary, how we're doing, you see right here, how we're doing with conversions of opens, starts, partially completed, and completed with all the various entities. And then I can even come down here and I can look at what this looks like per week for the good, which is a sent, delivered, converted, or maybe the bad too. And anytime you want to be able to export this, you certainly can. We can go in the delivered history. One of the other things I'll point out, which is kind of differentiators with a lot of solutions with reporting, is every single field we're synchronizing with TargetRecruit, which pretty much is every field you have enabled against those standard entities, can be placed here as a filter. So even if you have something like crazy like favorite color, you're going to be able to get the data set you want through Sense. And then, this is really the delivery metrics for all those things. But then we go a lot deeper, flagged responses, bad keywords, or responded with under a certain threshold for rankings. And then chatbot metrics, transcripts, the messaging metrics that Pankaj was talking about before. We're going to be able to see important things like contact response rate or average response time of the recruiters. We're tracking NPS against both the consultant and the client perspective. And then from a performance perspective, we have some really nice statistics there as well, where I'm going to actually show you some abstracted client data. This is on the chatbot, but if I go to the next one, you'll see we also have ROI analytics. So how much money is Sense making you? How many placements has Sense influenced? And then we allow you to see what that data is. Or how much time are we saving your recruiters based on sending out correspondence? And then we have some nice visualizations around contractors. In this case, how many people are first-time contractors versus second-time contractors versus third-time over any period of time? Or, a trailing 12-month redeployment matrix. In June, we had 4,000 people come off assignment. How many people did we immediately replace? How many people did we replace within the first month? And then people go elsewhere, and then how many of them were we able to bring back into the fold? So that, at a super high level, is what I wanted to show. I'm going to actually pass it back to Pankaj at this point.
Thanks, Jason. So yes, so I'm going to simply wrap this up by essentially, walking you through one or two last slides. So, what you've just seen from Jason is essentially what our entire tech stack looks like. It is 100%, designed with your business processes in mind. Sense has 4 different products. You've seen Engage, Messaging, and Chatbot today. You can use that across the talent lifecycle. And we are maniacal about essentially returning, ROI back to you. And that's exactly what we will talk about every quarter. This is a snapshot of what typical customers would see with Sense. You would be able to reduce your job board spend by 25%. You almost end up doubling your NPS scores. You increase your offer to start by 30%. You increase redeployment rates by 2 to 4%, which is huge. If your redeployment rate today is 3%, 5%, imagine that becoming 20%, which means you have 15% more revenue. And back when I was running staffing companies, I only wish I could grow 15% year after year, but that would be super easy with a system like Sense. So, I know we've kind of gone through a lot of stuff really quickly today, but in summary, the things we're excited about that we wanted to share with you is, one, we now have a deep and seamless integration with TargetRecruit. We have about 10 of your customers live on Sense already. So number of referenceable customers, you already know that this is working really well. There are a number of processes we can automate and add text messaging into your repertoire if you don't use that today. But for anybody who's interested, we'll be more than happy to do a more thorough conversation, walk you through a personalized demonstration, and actually talk about what your specific use cases may look like. With that, thank you so much, and I will pass this back on to Alistair.
Fantastic. Thanks, Pankaj. Thanks, Jason. Fantastic. Excellent presentations. Some really good functionality there. So thanks for that. We're just going to move on and do a couple of, well, quick poll questions, just to get some feedback on these sessions and other things that we might do in future. So we'll just bring those up, and then that will give you a chance to look at the questions that have come in. I see there's quite a few that have been raised, which is great. So if you could just have a quick review of those, and then we'll come back to you to answer those afterwards. So first and foremost, most importantly, have you found this webinar useful? If you could just let us know, we'll just give about, I won't take too much time, but just 20 or 30 seconds or so just to answer that. Okay, I can see lots of votes now, so that's great, and all very positive, which is even better. Okay, thank you. And the next one. Would you be interested in learning more about Sense integration with TargetRecruit? It's a pretty compelling case based on what we've seen today. So yeah, hoping that we'll get lots of good leads out of this. Okay, just a few more seconds. Most people voted now. Fantastic. Great. And the next one, or the final one, just for our benefit, really just trying to get a feel for the kind of sessions or webinars. We try and run them fairly regularly. I think we're looking at monthly. So just to get a feel for what you might find useful in future webinars for our clients, to look at new TargetRecruit releases and features, to look at best practice using existing features, so making the best use of what you've got already and possibly covering features you may not have been aware of, some tips and tricks. Sessions such as this, looking at third-party or partner solutions and integrations on or off the Salesforce platform, or hopefully all of the above. Fantastic. I think almost everyone's voted on that as well, which is great. Good. Okay. Thanks for your feedback. That's been really useful. And I'll hand back for the Q&A.
Excellent. So I saw a couple questions come in. We don't have a lot of time here, but I'll try and at least get through a couple of them. The first one was, is Sense available in, is it only available in Lightning, or can you use it with Classic as well? And the answer is yes, it will work with Classic as well. So it doesn't really matter which version of the Salesforce scheme you have on. The second one was, what number will the Sense messaging be coming from? And that's a great question, because I didn't cover that at all in the demonstration. But typically, what we're able to do is, whatever voice number that recruiter or salesperson is using, we can actually, what we call, take ownership or host the texting aspect of that number. So they can call from the same number that they would be texting from with Sense, which makes for a great experience for the end recipients, the candidate, the hiring managers, and so on. Now, if you don't have direct 10-digit numbers for your recruiters and you only have extensions, we can accommodate for that too by providing a local number for that recruiter to use to text from. And then if someone calls that number, it can then forward that voice call to the main line for that office.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Just a couple of other housekeeping things around, will this recording be shared? Absolutely, yes. And a couple of people wanted us to follow up with them, which we absolutely will. But just in the interest of ending in time, we are at 10:45 Pacific. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us your time today. Thank you, Alistair and TargetRecruit team for helping us put this together. Thank you, Jason. And with that, everybody have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you again.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.